Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to the Poke Resort. We're back again with another podcast video. Today we have another special guest, and that is Jason Plays Pokemon. Jason, you got 30 seconds to talk about yourself. Ready, set, go.
30 seconds. All right. Well, I'm the guy that made the worst username possible. I've been making videos on YouTube for about 8 years now. I mean, primarily streams in the last year or so. So, I mean, that's what I'm more known for. But yeah, I make Pokemon content. Isn't that surprising by my name? But also, I like to do other stuff too. So you'll come to know that more about me as we get along here with this podcast.
All right, perfect. That was a good amount. So what we're going to be doing today in today's podcast, I mean, most of the time I would like to talk kind of what's more relevant in the Pokemon community, but at the same time, this is pretty much the most dead time of Pokemon that you can possibly get. So we're just gonna go talk about what it's like more of in the YouTube community, anything that's going on, I guess, with the TV show / movie, and then kind of more speculation towards Generation 8, because I mean, as we all know, there's nothing to talk about, so we're just gonna pull stuff out of our ass and hope everything goes well. So
pretty much.
we'll get it started with something that I feel like that I've been just more interested in, and just something that I feel like I've been more talkative about in the Pokemon community is, do you think the Poketubing community hypes up Pokemon games to the point where we are let down?
Okay, so I just had a conversation about this with somebody the other day, not specifically with the Pokemon community, but just in general. I think having too high of expectations for games in 2018 in general. Sun and Moon were a great example of that. I feel like I remember I made theories with a buddy of mine a couple of months before the game came out, actually more than a couple of months, like April, and we were making theories about stuff like how the ending of the game would be, about there being like a post-apocalyptic ending, which funny enough actually ended up coming to fruition in Ultra Sun and Moon. But you have something like that happening, which is like almost in a way too predictable, but then along the way you have, you know, certain things that we said, like some characters might return here, or this might happen here and that, and it's like, you know, sometimes I feel like when you make these theories, you have to really take them with a grain of salt yourself, because otherwise you hype yourself up for something that could not end up actually coming to fruition. And like the problem that I had is, you know, I feel like I expected too much from Sun and Moon, and I also feel like they did definitely show too much in trailers, so it's like, I'm thinking they're not going to show us the whole entire game. There's got to be more to it that you're going to end up seeing at one point. But I feel like when I played the game, it's like I literally saw everything, and some of these cutscenes even in trailers. So it took away the, I don't know, the surprise of everything, you know. And that's the biggest problem I had with it. But I don't think in terms of the Pokemon community that we really like overhype it. But I would say when you see videos that are kind of like, you know, the more clickbaity ones, or the questionable, like, and no shade to anybody who does this stuff, it's just my personal opinion that, like, yeah, it does kind of create false hype for a game when you have like top 10 new Pokemon that could exist in Generation 8 or something like that, and it's like a bunch of Pokemon that you see taken off of Google or whatever it might be, and then people are like saying, oh yeah, we could have like a dolphin Pokemon in Sun and Moon. That's one of the things that like I remember seeing in the leaks too, but a lot of people are just making up stuff that they want to see happen, and a lot of people push it as to be factual information, like, oh, this came from a source on 4chan or whatever it might be. So on that front of things, I would say, yeah, there's definitely a bit more of like I guess fabricated hype made for the games, but I wouldn't say that it's like, you know, necessarily a bad thing. I just I would say I have a problem with the people who try and push some of this leaked or, you know, speculated information as potentially factual. That's where I would say kind of draws the line.
I would say that was the perfect explanation as far as we want something, so we're going to think it's going to happen. And I think once you put that mindset, no matter what, you're going to be left down. Because when you think of all these different thoughts that you would have for a brand new game, most of the time, a lot of that stuff isn't going to happen. So when you set that expectation for yourself and you don't get that, no matter what, you're going to be let down with the game.
Exactly. And that's like, I feel like the whole story of Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon was great. I don't think I need 2 games, but I definitely think it was a really well-written story to a certain extent. But I feel like even just like in a previous generation with Zygarde, you know, we were sort of left on a cliffhanger with what happened to Lily. Where are we going with all this Kanto referencing everywhere? Like, it's kind of, I don't know, it feels like there's loose ends to be tied up, and it also feels sort of rushed. But I would say that in general, for the last couple of years of Pokemon, hype has definitely been fabricated more than it could be, because of everybody theorizing what could potentially come from this, and everyone's all, you know, involved in all these theories, and I'm getting excited about some of the ones, like, I remember, dude, I mean, this still could come true, needless to say, but like Loxton's theory, dude, of like the reset of everything like that, if that doesn't come true with like a Diamond and Pearl remake, like, I'll genuinely be upset, because that would be the way I think it should go. But then, you know, it's like everything is written out by Game Freak the way you would imagine it would be to lead to that kind of ending, and then it doesn't happen. There's been a lot of times where it's like, okay, I've theorized this. Many people have theorized this. All the numbers line up to this, but at the same time, it's like Nintendo just decided, okay, yeah, so Zygarde, so we're just gonna make you collect 100 cells for it, and that's it.
Yep.
No, there's no cool cutscene, no nothing. Like, it's just like, all right, well, so much for the Defender Pokemon. Like, you know what I thought? I thought it would be like, you know, Zygarde maybe fights, I guess, Necrozma being like the antagonist in the games, but it's just like you have like the Defender of the ecosystem come together and sort of rebuild everything from like the post-apocalyptic state, something like that. No, he just collects cells and he plays no other important role. So it's like, yeah, that's the letdown part. Is you expect too much from something when Game Freak gives you all the answers to be leading to one way, but then doesn't even go that direction, and it's just a little sad, honestly.
Yeah, I feel you on that part. I think was it you or was it JPR PT? There was someone who had a video come out as far as problems with mythical Pokemon.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I do believe that. Well, I don't remember the name, but that definitely wasn't me. I did see that, though.
I'm pretty sure that was him then, and that was something that like really made a lot of sense, because back in the day we would have all these events that we would need, like let's say for I think it was back when we had the Game Boy Advance, when it was a Deoxys event. I think we had to go to like GameStop or something to be able to acquire that event, to be able to actually like do something to get the Pokemon, instead of just going to a Pokemon Center and just, okay, oh, here's this person, like this Pokeball, here you go, he has a Pokemon in it, that's it.
Yeah. So, and I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, like, if we were able to kind of go back to what it was before, instead of just always just making it so simple and just hyping up a new Pokemon, like there has to be more of like an actual real feel to it, where if you put me in real life and I'm gonna look for like just whatever, this really rare animal that's only in the Sahara Desert or whatever, I'm gonna have to go there and I have to experience something that's going to be tough to be able to get to that point to be able to find that animal. And that's what we need to have in the actual game, so it feels like we are on an adventure to be able to discover something that really was just discovered in the Pokemon universe.
Yeah, like, so it sort of presents that as a story, and I totally agree. Like, I mean, some of the more notable ones, yeah, you have Deoxys, you have Mew from Pokemon Emerald, you have Shaman from Gen 4. Like, I mean, that in general was like the whole aspect of going on that new adventure. Like, oh, Professor Oak's letter, you take that and you go over to that one cave, and it creates that whole like floral pathway up to Shaman. Like, even though it's more so just like a point A to point B kind of concept, it's still cool because it adds a new area to the games. It gives you a bit more depth to the story, and it says this isn't just something you're being handed, like Magearna or Zerosa or any of these newer ones. Even Gen 6 they did that with a lot of the ones there. Like, I can't even remember.
It was pretty much all of them.
It was like, yeah, it was like Hoopa, Volcanion, which I don't even know. Did that even come out in Gen 6's lifespan? I feel like that came out.
I think it came out in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. You were able to get it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I still part of still Gen 6.
But it's still the concept of just being handed the Pokemon and being like, all right, well done. Like, all right, that's awesome. Thanks for the experience, you know? So I get that.
Yeah, so that's it. But I mean, I think part of it, just going back to the games being hyped up more than what they actually should be, I think it's not only an issue on our part, but it's also an issue on the Pokemon company's part because of the YouTube. It's basically been ever since the YouTube era of doing any kind of announcements or reveals. I think that's been kind of the problem, where we set that expectation for us, where every single month we're gonna get some kind of new information, and we're gonna hypothesize to be the most insane, crazy theory ever, and then when we don't get that, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think that's part of the problem with the Mythicals, where all they do now, instead of making an actual in-game event, they make a YouTube video to kind of excite a general population to be able to like, oh, that's a new guy? Alright, we're going to have to try to go to the Pokemon Center, get it, and then see how it works competitively. I think that's basically the new era of Mythicals.
So you're saying more based around like a competitive standpoint?
Yeah, as far as with the new Pokemon goes, yes, because there is no adventure at all revolving around any of these new mountains. For sure.
No, yeah. No, and I mean, like, it's kind of disappointing, too, because it's like, you know, I don't even know, this is, because everybody had those release theories about Sun and Moon, and I know I did as for sure. Like, you had the one point where they released the whole map screenshot and like that really HD like 4K resolution. A lot of people saw Po-Town, I believe it was called the Team Skull Hideout. A lot of people saw that and thought that was going to be like the Azoth Kingdom in reference to like the movie where Magearna was originally, right? Like, that's what I thought. So I'm thinking like, okay, that's the Azoth Kingdom. We're gonna go there. There might be something in game to do with Magearna. Who knows? And because I knew about its existence, and I think it was like released in Koro like a few months prior. But either way, I was like, oh, this could be pretty cool. This is what's gonna happen. Then we get into the game, and I find out, unfortunately, because of the leak of all the Pokemon in the Pokedex, I see that Magearna is like right at the end of the Pokedex. So it's like, all right, well, it's another event Pokemon. So is that really gonna happen? Because that looks like a main story place. So it can't really, like, you can't pass through there and then come back through later for an event or so. I don't know. It just didn't make sense the way they played it out. Like, you should have had it been like, again, an adventure within the game. You go do something to obtain it, not just being handed to you. And I hate that about the new event Pokemon.
Yeah, and I feel like they always do that with specifically just the mythical Pokemon, where I think they did a good job with the Tapus of the region of Generation 7, where you did have a lot of cutscenes for each and every single one of them. So I think that was good, where you had to go to explore to a certain part of the region. You had to go into this one, I don't know, antique area or whatever, and that's where you gotta encounter the, I don't even know, are they considered mythical Pokemon? I don't know the specific.
I think they're considered legendaries.
Are they? Okay. So I mean, I think they do a better job as the like more the mainstream versions, but when you have those ones who are just embedded in the game file just to be released later, I think that's something that they really need to improve. And I think we could snowball this into another topic, and that would be DLC for the games. Now, let's just pretend there'll be free DLC, and it would come out, let's say, after the game's release, maybe every 4 months, so then you basically extend the lifespan of the game for basically another year. So if you were to have 3 mythicals around there, something around those lines, and from there, that's when you're able to download the little DLC, add a little patch to the game, where maybe you are able to go discover a new part of the region, or go to somewhere maybe on a boat or whatever that might be a little bit distant from there, and just give you some kind of an element that would make you feel like this is an addition to the adventure and the lore of the region, rather than it just being handed to you.
I would love that too. Like, I would love that so much.
And I don't feel like it's something that's difficult to do. I just don't think they've done it, and I don't know if they're willing to be that adventurous to get to that point. What do you think?
I mean, first of all, the way I see it is the problem in the past, and I really don't think Nintendo's ever struggled with money per se, but I know what a lot of companies, like smaller independent ones anyways, they try and polish their games as perfect as possible before they ever release it, because I'm sure some people are aware of this watching. I'm not sure if you're aware. I've heard down the grapevine, for someone like Microsoft, for something as much as like a simple hotfix to like Call of Duty or any random title on the console, you would end up having to shell out like anywhere over of like $500,000 upwards for a simple hotfix, and like it costs a lot of money to send out updates to a game, and which is something that's news to me, but like it's crazy to think about that. So put it in Nintendo's perspective, I would assume it's the same way, because it just I don't really know the concept behind it, but that's anyway. The problem would be if you're trying to shell out constant updates for a game, especially if they're free, you'd have to be willing to, maybe take a bit of a loss and hope that it's actually a worth it concept. So the way that they would have to go about doing it, I guess, is how they've always done it. You have the areas already made up in the game, like, so that way you can access them. Even if you were to, I guess, break the game's code, you could do like a walkthrough wall sheet. They're in the game presently, but they're not unlocked till those events are, put into your game through an update or through, whatever it might be, like a mystery gift. But I think, like, by doing that, and this is what I was going to initially say when you started this point up, it's just like you could do that, but the whole problem is it can be data mined, it can be found out. I think what they should do, and if they're willing to, if it's the money's the barrier there, shell out the amount that it takes to keep it secret and keep it hidden, because I think the problem is, even if they aren't in the game necessarily, you can still obtain them by illegitimate methods, and you can have it spoiled for you, like with those Pokédex leaks and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it would be better, at least at the very minimum, if they're not going to give them like a story that leads up to where you need to be, and kind of give it a bit more depth. At the very least, give them out to us in updates, like you said, every 3-4 months, and be able to keep it more of a secret. Don't even have the Pokemon or the location in the game's data. Just completely have it out of the game, but have it set up. You just put it there, and then it's all a brand new experience. Nobody gets it spoiled for them. I think that's also the biggest problem that happened with Sun and Moon, was so much was given out at the very beginning or throughout the course of the marketing cycle, and it just ruined it, man. Like everything that was about the game was already out and about like a week before it came out with all the leaks and everything. So it kind of ruined it.
Yeah, I think one of the two worst things that they did for Sun and Moon was that they announced Red and Blue were going to be coming back to the game. You did not need to announce that to be able to sell that game. You did not need to do it.
No.
And then for the newest game was the Team Rocket version of it, the Rainbow Rocket. And I don't feel like you needed to do that to sell the game either, because you had a few of the different storylines and elements to it where it was mainly about the Ultra Beast. That's basically what the sequel, or whatever you want to call it, is for Ultra Sun and Moon. So adding that other part was more of something that should have been more hidden, but at the same time, just with how social media is nowadays, it is going to get spoiled. But I mean, if you're like me, or pretty much anyone else who's like really in the hardcore community, we're going to be finishing this game in about 3 days anyways. So, and I don't think we're going to be on too much social media when it involves going on that, because like when I'm sitting on my bed or doing whatever, sitting on a chair, and I'm just playing through the game straight all day until it's basically completed. But I know other people can space out the game a little bit longer, where if they do go on social media, they might get spoiled with it that way. So I think it's more of like, what does Pokemon want to do? Do they want to announce it themselves, or do they want it to be leaked in other different directions? And I think that's where you kind of like, all right, pick your poison here.
Yeah, no, and you know, that's one of the things that happened with me too. Like, I try so hard to avoid spoilers, but it's like, because I don't have the attention span to sit there and play, at least in today's day and age. Like, again, Sun and Moon are great games, but I'll tell you, man, I could sit there and play that game for longer than 5 hours at a time. I don't know how I did it when the game first came out, because I was streaming for like 12, 13 hours straight for like weeks, and it's just like, that killed me, I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, dude, like, the games are great, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I have to space it out. And I know at one point, one thing I did get spoiled with Ultra Sun and Moon was, unfortunately, just like 20 seconds of it, it was Necrozma's Z move.
Oh, and, yeah,
dude, I was so mad about that, but I saved everything else. Like, I sort of unfortunately saw what it looked like, but then like I didn't hear its battle music or anything, so that was still really awesome to hear for the first time. But yeah, no, like stuff like that, it's like, it's always the really important stuff that kind of is like the revelation point, and it's like, well, that just got ruined. So yeah, I don't know, I learned my lesson from that. Stay on social media, but that's the best thing you can do for leaks, is just not indulge in what everyone else is doing, basically.
And that's the toughest thing as a YouTuber, because that's literally almost our job to be able to report the news. But you almost, there's a morality behind it. I don't want to get too much into that, but it's more of your job is kind of to create content and to be aware of everything that goes around in the Pokemon community and with this specific game. So it's kind of weird. We're like, oh, well, why don't you know this? Like, well, I'm trying to stay away from it, so it's kind of hurting me as far as a YouTuber standpoint. But as a fan, you kind of want to just do it for yourself, where that's how I've kind of been as far as whenever a new game would come out, because everybody would pretty much start their LPs, and I mean, that's pretty much your subscription feed the day the game comes out. That's all you see. And with me, I've always had a tougher time with that, because I kind of just like to, like, when I play the game, it just feels good to be able to go back to like when I was a kid and just not really have any worries and just go enjoy the game for yourself. Yeah, just kind of like just explore, because I mean, when you're playing the game, you're also an entertainer for that. So it's important to be moving along, and the longer you kind of just do exploring little things, it really drowns out the game. And I don't know, as far as an audience standpoint, they probably want you just doing everything like the main part of the game, where anything that would be maybe off screen would be the stuff just doing all that exploring and everything. And just as far as that goes, I think I was able to, at least as far as Ultra Sun and Moon goes, was to stay away from the spoilers at the end, because in the end I thought I would just get 2 games and I wouldn't want to upload all the LP at once. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do 1 episode, just see how it does. Doesn't do well, I'm not going to continue it, because I mean, it really does take a ton of time to be able to do LPs, and it's really like, are you going to invest into it? Is it going to pay off, or do you not care about the payoff, or you just do it just because you want to be giving that to your YouTube followers? So I mean, it's a tough decision to be able to make, and how you're going to decide to play this game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, for me, I haven't done a Pokemon LP in years, and that's just because of the fact that it's pointless to me, because I'm just trying to enjoy the experience for myself. Now, granted, like, I did record along the way, I have some clips from my playthrough, but like, there's, and again, also there's some people as well that do it really well, where they can play through the game at a pretty good rate and be able to get all their content made. I mean, does come out seeming like it is rushed, but I know that someone who does it very well and it isn't rushed is my buddy Hayden, our Hero Volts. He does that very, very well. There's a lot of people who do it, like upload most of their LP by like the 3rd day of the game's release. But the one thing that I see, at least if I tried that, and I have tried that for Sun and Moon, it just took away from the experience of being able to enjoy the game for me. And some people who are used to it can do it, but for me, it's like you're taking away from exactly what Game Freak, I guess, almost took away from you in the sense is like they basically sucked it dry of everything that you can do because you're just stopping going. But then the same way, like, you know, Game Freak has pretty much sucked the game dry from me. I've seen everything that's in the game at this point, so I don't know. It's like, do I even want to continue doing this for the purpose of making the playthrough, like, you know, do good on YouTube, get all the views that I want to, try and beat everybody else in the algorithm, because it's like everyone's already seen everything that's there. I'm just going to enjoy it at my own pace and call it a day at that.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, where it's just more of just whatever your personality is, that's just the one that you choose. There isn't right or wrong answer, it's just whatever works out for you, and obviously for you it's a little bit easier to do it off screen. For me it's a little bit easier to do it off screen, so that's why I try to, at least when I tried to do it, because I think I did, I tried to do, Sun and Moon leading up into the games, and by the time, like, I think I just did the math wrong or whatever, because I tried to be able to finish the game before the new games came out, and I was like right almost the very end. I think at like the end of the totems and everything, and the new game came out. Like, all right, well, nobody's even gonna care about what I just did before, and I tried to do the new one, and it just wasn't really my thing, where I think it's more of try to figure out what's best for you. For me, I don't think I had a problem, because I know there are people that would do maybe like one episode a day or one episode every 2 days, and I think that pace works out a lot better as far as an entertainment standpoint goes, because a lot of people who will upload pretty much the entire thing within the first 3 days, those are the people that want to know everything about the game and just play along with the other player. But as far as entertainment goes, where if I like this guy's personality, where I think one of my favorite personalities to watch is Shady Pokemon. I just think he does a pretty good job as far as keeping entertained no matter what he does. And if he were to upload an episode once every couple of days, I guarantee you he would keep that same view rate as a lot of people who uploaded everything at once, and he would have his duration go for about a month and a half or 2 months and still be able to do just as well. So I think there is a difference in getting a bunch of content out or being able to pace it yourself and still be able to have your audience enjoy every episode.
It's quality over quantity, man. Like that's the biggest statement to put on that one. If you're a good entertainer, then there should be no problem with doing it how Shady does it, or how what was another person that does something like that? Because I've sort of fell out of the community, to be honest. Like I've always known Shady to be good at that. I think Nappy does a lot of his like on a daily basis.
Yeah, he does pretty well.
Who would you say is another good example of that? Because again,
I would say Munching Orange. I think he was a pretty good one.
Okay, and I think because he does his like I know he's actually isn't he still doing his Ultra Sun and Moon playthrough? Or is it just recently finished? I'm pretty sure.
Honestly, I don't know. He kind of fell off the face of the earth like the past 2 months, where I would always just check in, just see how he's doing, just see what he's up to. But I mean, I don't think he's been up to much lately. I mean, he's pretty much only known for Let's Plays. Yeah,
I mean. It's funny, like, mentioning Munching Orange. It's like thinking back, because he's always sort of been like that. I know he definitely was a very frequent uploader, but like I remember originally discovering him. Oh, God, that would have been like maybe
2012 or 13.
No, even earlier than that,
really?
Man. Like 2009 maybe.
Oh, man, okay.
Because I remember I used to watch this guy named Clefable919, and he was really good friends with Munching Orange. And this is sort of around the Pokemosh Pit days, actually. But that's how I remember, like, it originally, I would say meeting, because I don't know a lot of these people on a personal basis. But getting introduced to some of these people, like Munching Orange, Hayden, I'm trying to think, some of the people that don't really upload anymore, like King Daddy D-Mac, even Steve or Magnitude, like a lot of people from the original OG days, like that's sort of that I just figured I'd bring that up. That's sort of where I remember Munching Orange from initially, because I remember I watched him do what was it? I know I've seen his one of his more recent
he did more of like the ROM hacks. I think that was kind of, I think he started out with like Generation 5, and then that's when the, like, I would say the hacked games, or the whatever you want to call it, the off-brand games. That I think that's something that he really got into. I think like probably the first playthrough I saw was like the Naranja, where they had like the orange islands and everything.
Yeah. And I think mine was Ash Gray from him initially. Okay,
yeah, and I really enjoyed those style of games, because I think that was something very new to the community, and something like we really haven't seen before. So when we saw like, oh, you can do these to these games, and you can kind of have these own little anime adventures that we never got to experience in the games, even though we kind of always wanted that. So I think that was a cool thing to see. I think that's kind of what captivated me into at least the LP part, because when I first got into just this community, I think it was like around 2012, 2013, so pretty much right before Generation 6 came around, and there wasn't really a lot back then to watch, and that was more of like when I saw it, I was like, oh, these guys have all these cool ideas and everything. I'm like, well, I have some ideas, I have some thoughts about the game, I maybe would want to like give my own presentation and going through an LP. So that's kind of when I started, but I mean, it was mainly like Munching Orange for me, J-Wits, trying to think. I don't even think Nappy was out then yet. I think it was like it might have been a GCPM. I know he's been around for a while. He's
been around for a long time.
So I honestly would say probably it was around those core guys and then Magnitude as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for sure on the subject of like where the ROM hacks sort of drew inspiration for like the community. Ooh, excuse me, voice cracks all day long today. It drew the inspiration for the community to like do more LPs and that style of just like, you know, playing through it in like 10 minutes. Well, actually, that's a good question as well to add to this. Do you remember back when YouTube was only 10 minutes long?
I don't know if I remember that. I think right when I started to watch, I think it was like, at least from more of what I saw was around 15 to 20 minutes.
Because I know at one point, this is us, like I used to watch a hell of a lot of Chugga Conroy. I remember back in like the old, like that was about that time, 2008, 2009, YouTube videos could only be 10 minutes long and you were limited to that. So kind of looking back at what we said a few minutes ago, where it's sort of like the longevity of something and like the quality over quantity, I think like that in itself was sort of, I don't know if I want to use the word optimized or kind of like branded by a lot of people within recent years, because back in the day, it's sort of hard to fit all you want to do into a 10-minute segment without editing it down. You know what I'm saying? Right? So the way I see it now, like if we're looking at someone who does, I don't even think they do a lot of editing, to be fair, but just like in the present day, Munching Orange, he's kind of like the grandfather to the LP community when I really look at it in that perspective, because he's the one that sort of probably inspired a lot of people, I know myself included. I think you were just saying that a second ago too, like inspired us to want to try out ROM hacks in the first place, as well as just take on an LP style of content with like playing through the game in parts and stuff like that. That's something that I know was revolutionized by a lot of the ROM hacks I was seeing, because everybody's always tired of seeing the same playthroughs of like the same Pokemon games, and that's always been a problem. That's maybe another topic for another point here, but like you have so many people that are kind of bored of what's always new, and people are then complaining and lusting for something new to finally come out. But then when something new comes out, you have people complaining the minute it's out, saying this isn't what I wanted, or this isn't enough, I'm bored of this already. And I feel like in recent years, I don't know about you, but I think out of from Gen 6 till the modern or the current day Pokemon games that we have, Ultra Sun and Moon, I think the most the ones that had the most longevity were definitely Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire.
I'm trying to think. You might be right on that, because, well, did we have a gap year between X and Y and ORAS, or was it between ORAS and Gen 7?
I think, yeah, it was between ORAS and Gen 7. That's also kind of crazy to think about, because just per se, I don't think it's ever been in their timeline before where they've done a remake before they've done the new gen. Like, it's always new gen on new hardware. But like, just think of Kalos or X and Y had it been the Pokemon game to be the current one before the gap year, because we, I think, had 2 years to wait. It was from 2015 to 2017, or was it 2016 this time?
I think it was 2016. Yep.
So then it would have been 2014 to 2016. Imagine if you had reversed it, so X and Y was the last one we were left with. I don't know if that game would have held the test of time on that one, like, in truth.
No, because there was nothing to do after you finished the game. There was nothing.
Then both games had the looker missions, which are cool, but it's like, at the very least, you had you didn't have the Battle Frontier, but it was the Battle something or other, the Battle Tower. You could just fight a bunch of trainers over and over.
Yeah, I think that was like, was that like the Lumio Station or something like that? I'm trying to remember, at least for Gen 6.
Tell ya, I played such minimal amounts of Gen 6. I know most of my time was spent just playing through the original game and then shiny hunting a bunch. But that's also the other thing too, because I don't. Oh, actually, yeah, there was the one thing that, and this is another good topic to bring up. The one thing that I think ORAS did for a lot of people at that point was, okay, so you have Gen 6 coming out, and I've had this conversation many times too. And speaking of people like Shady and Nappy, that we use them as a great like example here. In 2013, I don't even think Katsukity was making capture cards at that point.
No, that was when it was Loopy, I think.
It was just Loopy, and I mean, even as much as 2 years ago, when the last time I think anybody heard from him, he was just doing the original 3DS kits. I know for a fact that nobody at that point really had a capture card, and if you had one, it meant you had money to spend, and it also meant you were not afraid of the risk that came with that. And so you have people like Shady, Nappy, you know, all the people in the Lumiose crew that were sort of around in like the 2013 days. I'm sure like I think Callan was part of that as well.
Yeah, they had their crew. It was kind of like their clique of about, I don't know, I'd say eight YouTubers.
You have those people that all have access to capture devices that can, you know, output it in like not necessarily 720p, but it's 240p. Also, did you know that that's the resolution for the 3DS?
Is it?
Yeah, it only displays in 240p. It's disgusting.
Oh my god. I never even would have thought of that, but I mean, I wouldn't say you're lying on that, because I mean, I've seen a lot better quality before.
Right, and like you notice how when you try and upscale that, like on a full screen resolution, it looks like garbage, dude.
Oh like, yeah, especially if you blow it up on any kind of a monitor. Oh yeah, you can see those squares everywhere.
So I mean, but anyways, you have people with this like, you know, HD looking quality, and it's not a camera recording the 3DS, because that was pretty much this like the meta for everybody for the longest time. That, or I know with Wi-Fi battles, and this again going back to PMP days, like you had and I think it was even Hayden who originally made one of the tutorials on how to like record Wi-Fi battles. People used to have like R4s and Ace cards, and you could like have a ROM on that, and you'd play on that and record it to your versus recorder, and then you take the save file out, load the ROM on Desmume, and then you could record the battle with like custom backgrounds and stuff through there. Anyways, so that came a long way going to capture cards, like actually having like a device to record it with. So those people who had access to that in 2013, they were the ones that prospered and grew like crazy, because they had that open like gateway for themselves to not, you know, like no one else had that quality, so everyone's gonna go to them to watch it, because like that's so cool, and the technology is so new. They
really did monopolize the community, or at least that portion, like the YouTube portion of Pokemon, because I mean, it was basically you had your top tier, and then those guys found these guys, and then those guys found the next tier, and then they all kind of just got together to be able to like create the Lumio station, and then it kind of just expanded outwards to their own channels, and that was pretty much that was the crew. That was it. That was what worked, because they knew how to kind of feed off of each other and keep collaborating, where I think that was probably like one of the best things I've seen as far as like a skill standpoint, to be able to figure out, all right, how are we going to be able to niche this community to us, and they managed to accomplish it.
Oh, absolutely, man. And like big props to all of them for doing that, because like it's monopolizing on an opportunity that was presented to them, you know, and like
for what wasn't even there.
Exactly, right? And then you have like a year later, just a year later, you have so many more people hopping onto this now, because they're like, holy crap, like I can make a lot of money off this. Well, and that's the wrong mindset, but that's what a lot of people were thinking. And I know that you have people dropping money on capture cards left, right, and center, and Katsukity and Loopy are like, all right, bring it on, like, you know. But then one of the big examples I was going to give of somebody who definitely like, and they've been doing good at this, capitalized on an opportunity and like grew from it incredibly, is A-Drive. The whole thing with Oras, I think, at least giving a lot of longevity to it. Let's be honest, and with again, this is also breaking down to the original not necessarily the hyping up part, but just the community aspect. What has kept these Pokemon games alive in these dry spells of not having anything?
Probably the shiny hunting.
That's exactly right. You have everybody doing shiny hunting. That's literally what everybody does. Like, if once you beat the game, what else are you gonna stream? Are you gonna go stream the battle tree? Like, yeah, have fun, right? Like, I did that once. It was really boring. So, you know, you have people that want to just kind of keep the longevity going for themselves, and shiny hunting is always one of those things too, where it's like, you know, you have a certain, like, I've set up myself a challenge that I wanted to get like all the Alola Pokemon and then do all the Pokemon in the wormholes and Ultra Sun and Moon. But it's like, if you set yourself a challenge, you do something and you can stick to it and not get bored of it, because sometimes it can be very tedious to do that shiny hunting stuff. Like, I love it, don't get me wrong, and that's what a lot of people even know me for, but like, even I know at times it could get tedious, and it's like you got to put it down for a little bit. You have the ability to, you know, have longevity from a game by setting these challenges. So A-Drive, he did like this, he's doing the shiny living decks. I don't even think he started doing that till like 2 years ago or so. So it was a year or so after Oras had even like had its first year rotation there. But then you have like, you know, him doing the dex nabbing, and he was one of the first people to discover how to get a shiny with the dex nav, and then I think that ultimately blew his stream up a bunch because of that, because he became the shiny hunting king, because he's just always on this grind of getting shinies like 3-4 a day. I know that's sometimes even more when I was watching his streams a lot back in the day. And big shout outs to him as well. But like exactly stuff like that, it's the capitalization on an opportunity that a lot of people, you know, they went after and they got it. And I would even say in some cases, like I had some luck with that too, but there's definitely, it's not about how large the scale is, it's about, in my opinion, the experience you got from it yourself, I think, at the end of the day. So if that's one way to look at the glass half full, not half empty about it. It's just, there's a lot of great stuff that's come from this community, and unlike others who would say the exact opposite, I think that the Pokemon community is definitely a very well brought together and well like founded community. It's not something that I would even consider to be toxic. I just think that and this is, I know, trailing a bit off, but I would just say it's definitely something that has been a topic of, or a question of interest, like along social media. You have a lot of people that think one way about it, but the way I've always seen it is that if you're having fun, you're enjoying what you're doing, and you stuck to your roots from day one and without like changing up too much, then there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's in a lot of ways, this is probably one of the best communities on YouTube, despite how some people might look at it. But anyways, even trailing back to like the original like Pokemoshpit days, like where the community sort of came from, it hasn't really changed too much along the way. The only thing that people have really changed up with it is just the amount of content that's being produced. That's where I was sort of getting at initially with like the quality over quantity. You know, some people that pump out their episodes of this, or their, you know, just videos daily, and sometimes like that could even hurt your channel too. But I just feel like again, it's always been about the quality of the content with the Pokemon community, minus some bad apples here and there, and that's just, you got to do your best as if you were to weave that in and out. So if anyone who had negative connotations of this community, I would say it's honestly one of the best communities on YouTube, even if it is a bit smaller.
I think the best way to put it is you have the pioneers of each content of Pokemon. I mean, you have all the different sections, so you know exactly when you go to a channel what exactly they're going to be bringing to their channel. Like with Munching Orange, it was the Let's Plays. With I would say Jay Witz, it was more of the edited videos, and that's kind of where I got my inspiration, where like I liked coming up with all these different ideas and everything and just presenting them to people like who never even would have thought about this in the universe. So I think that was a really cool part where he was the pioneer as far as how that goes, and then that's when it kind of snowballed into like doing the competitive Wi-Fi battles, and then you have the shiny hunting and everything. So you kind of have your diverse styles of the same franchise. So I think that was kind of cool, where people would go and choose whatever content of that franchise they'd like to watch. But the way it's developed into now, it's everywhere. I mean, everybody has like their own preference, but everybody kind of does everything now. So I think the biggest thing is the way the community has become, where back in the day it was more of, since there were less people, there was less competition, so people just do whatever they would enjoy, and that's what they would do. And then people started to see, like what you said, the money behind it, and that's when it became an uber competitive community. And I'm not gonna lie, I got part of it, because all you needed was one video to just go off, and then you would see how much you could make from that, and like, oh my god, how do I get to do this again? And then you start to look at the system, try to figure out, well, how am I going to be titling this video? Who's my competition now? And it just,
literally, oh man.
And it got to the point with me, I think it was with Gen 6, but it was with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and that's when I tried really hard to just really try to capitalize on it. But by the time I would say the hype of the game ended, and I just kind of looked back at that, and I just didn't enjoy my time, because I kind of thought of every single time I would upload a video, it would be a chore. And it was all, if I wouldn't do well, like as far as financially as the video would go, I would be disappointed. And I think that's when I got to the point where like I originally entered the community because I had something that I wanted to show, and I enjoyed presenting my ideas. And then I saw the money behind it, then I got competitive, and then it just kind of ruined it, because when you didn't do well, it just wasn't fun anymore. So I kind of had to retool my thinking going into this channel now, because everybody is trying to do whatever they can to capitalize on it. And once you kind of get past that point and you just look at, all right, what do I want to bring to this channel? What brings me joy, and is it going to be fun for me and the audience? And once you get to that point, you kind of start to forget about the whole competitive side, and you just got to realize maybe this isn't going to be for me, but at least I can have fun on the side doing it. Where this, like, there's people who have this as a full-time job. I think I'm lucky that this ended up not being as a full-time job, because I don't know if I see longevity in this in the long term. Because I mean, we retire when we're like 70 years old. I don't know if I could be doing this till I'm 70. I don't think it's gonna work like that. So I think it was important for me to at least see what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I am a graphic designer now, and part of that is because I looked in this community and I saw all this cool stuff people were making. Like, well, I never really got into the art field, but I liked what everybody did, and I felt like, well, I'm actually pretty decent at this. Like, I have my own style, and I think I can bring something good to the table as far as graphic designers go. So that's when I went to the program for school, and I'll be graduating in a year from now. But I mean, I've been in school for so long changing majors because I didn't know what I was going to do. Where, I mean, I'm just looking for internships every semester, and I think that's something that is the best thing that came out of this, is because I found my long career path out of it. So I think it's just more of, do this for the fun. There's way too many people in the community to even make this competitive, or like more competitive, because in the end you just gotta do you, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but as long as you're enjoying it, that's good. So I still see people out there in the community really going for that competitive mindset, or at least how am I going to be capitalizing on each video. And I think one of the people, because I was actually like, I think I mentioned something where A-Drive, because he's been really anything that comes out as far as news and Pokemon goes, whatever it's leaked or not, he's going to be covering it. And you kind of start to see where, like, nobody else is really doing it, but he knows this is his, like, opportunity to capitalize on it. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, or this whole podcast, is you have to be careful what you're bringing out to the audience, because every single time a rumor comes out and you're presenting that, you're already filling these people with false hope, because everything that's pretty much been rumored, none of it's true. None of it's true. We don't know anything about the games. It's 2018, it's been not even a year since the last game came out, and normally we may have a gap year, so I really don't think we'll even be getting a game until 2019, and I'd rather have it that way, because, I mean, do you want to be playing the same game over and over again without any breaks? No. You need that break to be able to kind of get your appreciation back for the franchise, so when it finally comes back, you're going to enjoy it so much more. Where I just see the community right now, there are so many people that started with just Pokemon, and they are not doing that anymore. People had to find something new to add to your channel, otherwise it was not going to do well, because that's just how it is with video games in general.
The way I see it is like, imagine if Pokemon was like a franchise like Call of Duty. Imagine if there was a new title dropping every single year. It was insanely rushed. Doesn't matter, and it makes matters even worse because I think they have two or three companies that are like actively making the different titles. But it's like you have one single company that is supposed to be pumping out content yearly. Like, no, like you can't have that mindset where it's like, well, I'm bored of this after 3 months, so I need something new. Otherwise, I'm not a fan of Pokemon anymore. It's like, okay, well, then goodbye. Like, we'll wait for a good game to drop. And I mean, I'd love a game 2018. Like, I'm ready for a new Pokemon game. I feel like at least in a couple more months from now, I'll be okay with it releasing 2019, maybe midway, or even as far as like next November, December time, like around the holiday season. I'm okay with it because, dude, it means it's going to be phenomenal. Now, of course, I don't think Game Freak's going to wait till holiday 2019. I think that might be a little bit long because they know that right now the Switch is hot. They want to capitalize on it while it's hot, especially since they know that everyone wants something for it. And they've already said something about Pokemon on the Switch. So people they're expecting something now. So they've got to deliver that in a timely manner. But like, if it was going to come out 2019, and I want to also trail back to something you said a second ago, but if it does come out in mid 2019, in 2019, it'd be like midway. And I would think, like, if you're gonna hear anything about it, the first time we're gonna hear something about Pokemon on the Switch, or at least start to see something, would probably maybe be E3 this year, maybe. And that's like a very hard maybe, because then if they say something at E3, it depends on what it is. Maybe just like it doesn't even have to be gameplay. It could literally just be like the name of the region, or it could be the name of the project, even like just without even saying, oh, it's Generation 8, because everyone assumes it is, and that's how they've always done it, is new gen on new hardware. But you know, I think personally, and I know they've even said this before, like, why did they not do Pokemon Z, or why did they not do Pokemon Gray? Because it would have been way too predictable. And so we're accustomed to figuring out Game Freak's new patterns every so often, because they're sort of always changing, but they stay generally the same. You see the fact that, yeah, okay, so pretty much every time there's been a new console, you have a new generation to go with it. Well, what if they don't do that this time? And again, sort of going back to what I said earlier, like with Loxton's theory, if Diamond and Pearl remakes were to happen and the whole reset happens, and then you basically start a new arc for Pokemon, it could mean that we get, and this is, I don't want to be that guy, but like, gentlemen, like, we could have Diamond and Pearl remakes on the Switch as the first game. We could. Hard maybe on that one again. But if we did, that would be a perfect opportunity for them to sort of reset the universe with Loxton's theory, if that comes to fruition, and say, all right, now we can start a new arc, and oh, by the way, here's the real game we've been working on a year later. So that way they keep people immediately interested in it, and you have so much content on the console to not need to be like, all right, when's the next one going to come out? Because number one would be, you know, a ported version of Diamond and Pearl, probably take them way less production time, but then you have this project that they've been working on the Switch for however many years now, probably like, I'd say probably since 2015.
Yeah, I would say about 3 years. I would say about 3 years.
At least at this point, right? Because Breath of the Wild, I think if they wanted to be comparable to that, and again, I think Pokemon, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pokemon's always outsold Zelda, right? Like, honestly,
I do not know the numbers behind that.
I would assume it would be. I mean, let me fact check that real fast, because like I just gotta see the Legend of Zelda sales records. I just want to know, because I'll be able to see just by the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that Pokemon and Mario are their best-selling franchise. Yeah, like some of these, like, okay, Ocarina of Time has sold 13.2 million. These are just like a couple of like the high-level ones. So you have the original Legend of Zelda that sold 9.3 million, which would have been across the NES, and yeah, no, it was just on the NES. Then you had Twilight Princess 9.2, Phantom Hourglass 7.74. So in total, at least up until Breath of the Wild, which crazy enough, it's only sold 8.48 million. I feel like Odyssey outsold that. It's only sold 91 million total copies of all of their games throughout their history. I'm fairly certain Nintendo has that beat by a long shot, just since I know Yellow is at like 20-something million, I think, or close to that.
I know they've easily totaled over 100 million for total sales.
So that being said, right, if they wanted to surpass Breath of the Wild easily, like not even a question, and they want it to be maybe their best-selling game since Red, Blue, and Yellow, I would imagine, like, okay, you either give them the new project you've been working on first, but then it's going to be in classic Game Freak fashion of, like, inconsistent story and, like, what's continuity in like in the timeline, where it's like, okay, you're gonna give us a game that's sort of like a new arc that you've been working on, and then suddenly next year or 2 years later we're back in the old story arc and we're sort of recapping that, like, again, assuming that they decide to sort of end everything off in Diamond and Pearl. Because again, this is, we'll trail onto this in a second, but it's like, what do you think we're gonna do? Ooh,
we'll just
Jesus,
say
man.
microphone issues.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Microphone issues, right.
Everyone hates when I do this. But you know, I think like if we were to go with Diamond and Pearl on the Switch, have that be those like remakes that everyone's looking for, what are you really gonna look from that? Are you gonna look for, and this is also, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying out so much, but with a remake and a remaster, like, I think those are two very, very loose terms that people often get confused together, because a remaster, that is something that should be untouched and completely just like ported and updated with newer, like a newer engine and newer graphics.
That's basically what Legend of Zelda does. They've done just literally remasters.
When you have a remake of something, like, look at every single Pokemon game that's come out. All the remakes, they're not ever called remasters, because Heart Gold, Soul Silver, that's a remake. You have new Pokemon, you have new areas, you have new characters. That's not the same as the original. You have Platinum. That's not a that's actually a remaster right there. I'd say the third successor versions are the remasters, because they're taking what was good in the game, and even though you could say it's a remake, I guess, because there's new areas, so it sort of follows the same criteria, I would say Platinum and Emerald and Crystal, they're like the successors or the remasters, the culminative versions of the two, right? But anytime there's been, you know, the Gen 3 remakes with Fire Red Leaf Green, or sorry, yeah, well, Gen 3, Gen 1 remakes.
It was Gen 3 that they did remake it, so yeah.
So you have all the remakes that have come out, they're always changed up from the original. There's new characters, a new area, a new something. Like Fire Red, they had the Sevi Islands. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, they had areas like the Global Trade Station, and I'm trying to think of any new actual areas. I swear there was like some new areas where you would encounter Suicune or something like that. Maybe
Fire Red Leaf Green?
No, in Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I'm trying to think. I don't
remember.
I don't think there was new areas, but there was new features and new characters and obviously new Pokemon. There was a lot. Oh, actually,
and new mechanics a little bit.
You know, did the Pokeathlon exist in?
I think it did. Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, either way, there was new stuff within that. So it wasn't the exact same as the original. And then Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, like you have no Battle Frontier, which is just the most disappointing thing out of anything. Like they took away one of the best things about those games. Even though again in Ruby and Sapphire, it wasn't like the Emerald Battle Frontier, was it? It was just like one facility, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even so, they don't add anything that, like, in my opinion, captures the attention of like the older fan base. Because I would rather go play Ruby and Sapphire for the nostalgia that it brings me when I was playing that as a kid, and not because like I loved Oras. Don't get me wrong; they are some of my favorite games. But it's just like, you know, there's something about playing it on a new updated engine with the new Pokemon in it that doesn't feel as nostalgic as going through and playing through with, like, you know, like leveling up a Slacking that you get from Petalburg Woods and making it super easy and not like getting one Wonder traded to you later on, like in the game on accident. Like there's a lot of mechanics you can choose to play with or not, or you can, you know, only catch Gen 3 native Pokemon. Because like, correct me if I'm wrong too, also, did they have a lot of Gen 6 Pokemon appearing throughout Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, or was it just strictly the Gen 3 stuff? Because I feel like it wasn't.
I know that what the recent trend has been for Pokemon is they would always add, after the first core games, whatever comes in second to the same region, they will always add much more of the past Pokemon that have already been out there. But a good example now is with Gen 6 and 7, is because they aren't bringing new Pokemon to the game that much anymore. Like we normally get like 100 plus every generation. That's not the case anymore. We're getting about 60 to 70 and a bunch of different forms. So to kind of compensate for that is they're throwing all the Pokemon that have already been invented and throwing them into the new region. So I don't know, as far as you said, for Gen 6 or
Gen for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Yes,
okay, so yeah, so for that one, I think they did add past Pokemon to that generation, and current ones.
So you could like, or not current ones, because I can't remember if you would encounter like Gen 6 or Gen 5 mons or even Gen 4 mons in the wild, like stuff that wasn't there initially. Because like I know at least in Ultra Sun and Moon, right? Like that's one thing you'll encounter. Well, okay, it's different for a new game versus a remake. Like, but I know that like in Ultra Sun, you get like an Inkay on the first route and stuff like that. And like, there's other cool Pokemon we've seen before. But when it's like an actual remake based off of a game that was from a generation way beyond that current one's time, like I don't remember if in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, if you could find like Gen 4 and above Pokemon in the wild until you beat the game. Like I think that they did add those.
That's a good point. So what I did, I just went to Cerebi quick and just to see. So they do have all the other Pokemon in the game. I mean, they have region exclusive from different generations in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, but I don't know if I can find out right away if it was after you beat the game or before.
I know with the Dex Nav, you could find a lot of Pokemon that weren't like native to the island. Like I think I don't know. Some of them were after you'd beaten the game. Mic issues again. Some of them were after you beat the game, but I know that like you could get like a Chatot on like the second route of the game using the Dex Nav. You could get Zorua.
I have it right here. So it says after you have done the story with Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre, you can go to Professor Birch and receive the National Pokedex. And when you receive it, that's when you get the Dex Nav, and you're able to pretty much catch any other generation. So I think it is after you beat the game, that's when you're able to catch the other generations.
So, because I'm trying to remember it makes me actually really want to play through Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire again on this conversation. Like, because I love those games, but Anyways, because I can't remember. Were there more than? I swear there was other Pokemon on my team that weren't just Gen 3 and below. Like I feel like I had more than that, but maybe not.
I'm not sure. I mean, I could always just find my, I don't know, my dusty old DS games and plop them in and see what my team is. But I mean, because I think I pretty much stopped playing it immediately after the Delta episode. So I mean, it'd be able, but I'm not too sure. I guess it doesn't matter too much. But I mean, yeah. So we got to be able to at least experience different generations of game. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, so my personal preference is whenever we get the remakes of the game, so like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, we have just like Heart Gold, Soul Silver. So what I don't like about the games is that they are a remake, because basically if I wanted to play that game, I would just play the original. I don't need to have a new high def version of it. I mean, it's cool. I'm not gonna say like no, they shouldn't do it, but I think what they should do instead is to be able to make sequels. They really need new storylines when it comes to this game, because I really don't care about playing the same game twice with better graphics. It just, that doesn't really captivate me anymore. Even if you have like more Pokemon that you're able to throw into it or whatever, it doesn't matter, because in the end I'm still playing the exact same game. So I mean, when the graphics were like less apparent, where there's all like, I don't know, 64-bit, whatever you want to call it, where a lot of it you'd use your imagination whenever you'd have your big moments and everything. And now with these new generation games, they're kind of throwing that in there. So I mean, if now it's more of like, if you see that animation and you don't think it's good enough, well, that kind of just goes out the window, because you can't like change your mind on it, because they have the better graphics to be able to choose that. Where with the old graphics, you'd be able to come up with your own storyline behind it as far as how animations work and everything. But with
that's an interesting point to bring up.
With the, yeah, thanks. I think I talked about the last one. I think that was just something like, you just don't have as much imaginations with the higher graphic games. But at the same time, when we get these new games, like, if I'm going to play through the whole thing, why don't you just give me a new storyline? Like, why can't you bring new characters into it? Because for all I know, we may never, ever have a new story in a same generation ever again, unless if it's just a tiny little bit of a change in a remake of the game. Where if we were to have the first games for the Nintendo Switch to be going back to Kanto, I will be mad if it's a remake. But if they're able to change every single character in there, maybe bring back the old characters and have a new storyline with them, and just give me something completely new in the Kanto region, and maybe even go to Johto, who knows? I mean, they're connected. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that, but I would not be opposed to having a game going back to Kanto, as long as it's a brand new story and it keeps me involved throughout the whole time of me playing through it without needing a brand new like region.
Now, just like, I gotta think about something here, because I had this theory a little while ago and it might seem ridiculous, but I want to get a level-headed opinion here. So imagine, and this is also sort of going back to what I was talking about with the Azoth Kingdom, right? So the whole purpose, what is Magearna like modeled after?
A Pokeball.
Right, and so it was actually supposed to be the first Pokeball, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So imagine, and again, this all depends on how we could make like some universe reset theory, whatever kind of thing.
Before you go further, I'm just gonna pause you really quick. So, do you remember the fourth movie that had Suicune and Celebi in it, right?
Yes.
Back when it was like Samson Oak when he was a kid, and they used those really old school ones. So Magearna's older than that, because I don't know if I remember or not. Was that the first Pokeball? So I mean, I guess.
Yeah. No, it was. We're talking ancient, like with Magearna.
Okay, gotcha. All right, go ahead.
So, and this is what really intrigues me in an idea like this, and I still want to make a video about this, like really badly. But think about Pokemon in a, I don't want to say prehistoric, but like a very ancient era. So it's set in like, 1700 BC, something crazy, whatever year it's all started, whatever. Like, and so think about going back to Kanto before it was civilized and evolved the way it is. And one thing that you'll notice that's heavily emphasized in the Gen 1 story was, especially when you go talk to Lieutenant Surge, was the Great War that took place. Now,
hey, you already convinced me. I'm down.
Right? Like, just imagine if we go to an era where it explains the untold that we were, told about as kids when we first played through, but it was never, visualized for us. We go back and we're the ones that create history. So you could say like we could go and create the whole course of the Pokemon timeline to come, and that might have something to do with like figuring out why there's several universes created, blah blah blah. You could get real deep with this, but essentially just think of a Pokemon game set in that timeline. No Pokeballs exist, and Pokemon follow you around just like they did in Heart Gold Soul Silver. Like that's a perfect way for them to bring that back too, because you know the Switch can handle that, and you have your whole party following you around, and so that changes up how the party system works. Maybe they can get rid of that idea of even needing to like open up a menu and like click on each Pokemon individually. You can just face the one you want, talk to it, interact with it that way.
Do you kind of like a Skyrim version of it?
Exactly, right? So it changes it up and it has like a follower system instead. So that would, oh my god, like just imagine that. And so that even if it's like the subtlest changes to the UI, maybe they still have a thing for your bag, but treat it more like Skyrim with that system, not like a, you know, like a 10 option menu system. You click on your Pokemon party and then you can go in there and do 5 different options on each Pokemon. Instead, just click on them, interact with them, and again, playing with the whole like prehistoric or ancient times like timeline, you would have, you know, maybe the story of Magearna, how that happened, or again, even before that, before Pokeballs existed. Because correct me if I'm wrong, and you even could fact check this, I'm pretty sure it was mentioned that at some point in one of the games that they didn't have Pokeballs back in the Great War, and that Pokemon and humans fought together in that sense, and they didn't need to be captured. So it's like, that kind of really makes me interested to see if Game Freak will go that route, since they've talked so much about Kanto, and if they want to make a remastered version of it, then you have the ability to go back to the old Gen 1 days. You might even see, who knows, like Alolan forms or something like that if they want to throw those in there, but I don't even know if those technically existed. But just playing through the original games again, new areas before the whole region was civilized and you had buildings and gyms and everything like that. I mean, there would still be probably gym leaders per se, and they might do it sort of like, that's what also interests me, right? Because if they go that route, the one thing I hate about Sun and Moon, and I'm just gonna be flat out honest, is the trials. I think they're the stupidest things ever. I miss gyms so much, but imagine if that was their testing ground for trying to do something like, okay, so after a certain checkpoint in the game, after you get to the equivalent of like the first gym, you fight, you know, this boss that is either just even a boss Pokemon, or you fight a trainer that's on the opposite end, and they're all like enemies on the opposing team that, you know, you fight like a gym leader, but it's more so done in a trial format, just obviously done better than go find 3 young goose and make sure that they don't escape, and then you can get the Z crystal.
Okay, like, so that's what I was gonna ask you on. So you don't like the objective in the trial, but you like the battle standpoint.
Yes, I think that that's still reminiscent of the gym fight, because otherwise, if that wasn't there, then it wouldn't even feel the same. Like it still doesn't. But you know, I guess with any case, like I look at it like this: one of my favorite gym, 2 of my favorite gym designs off the top of my head that I could think of. Iconic wise, I would say is Maylene's gym from Gen 4, well, from Platinum, because I think it was slightly different in Diamond Pearl. But you have also the I can't remember his name. I think it's Ramos, the guy that had like the vines in the tree in Gen 6.
Oh yeah, that one was really cool. Yep.
I love those ones aesthetically, and so looking at that, like even though they're, you know, somewhat of a gym puzzle, somewhat of just like a fun little like get through this parkour little whatever cheap puzzle, I think that that's still more fun than going on a goose chase to battle 3 wishy-washy or capture 3 young goose, and then and then make sure you get to the totem Pokemon, and then ooh, he creeps up on you, ooh, and then like that's it. Like there's no fun in that to me. I think it's just the only fun in it is the bastard, and it's just like, okay, cool, we've done it, and that's it, you know, like cool time. But I legit miss like getting the gym badges and having it be like, you know, it reminds me of how Ash was in the anime. I felt like I'm sticking the badge onto my coat, not in the badge case, and I'm getting ready to go up to the Elite Four. Like it immerses you more into it. I think that the trials take that away from it, honestly.
Hey trainers, Ash Ketchum here to thank you for watching the Poke Resort. Become a Pokemon Master by subscribing to Austin's channel. Don't forget to see his other recent videos so you can watch them all. Pikachu and I have surfing lessons with Austin's Alolan Raichu. So, we'll catch you later.